Okay, so I'm just going to start from here. This is the intro. Not doing a proper one this time. I'm sick of that, what we used to say the last time. So this is it. You guys are laughing because you thought I was going to do something proper. No, this is what we're doing. Welcome to From the Top.
People would turn on this podcast and be like, did I click halfway through to this?
Why am I feeling threatened at the start?
No, this is the new laid-back kind of intro, that the kind of image that I want From the Top to have going forward, guys.
You're forcing it, Steve. That's the thing. That's the
you're
problem.
trying to put sunglasses on our podcast. It's not working. We're nerds, okay?
Fine, I'll try it again. Hey guys, welcome from the Top. This is that's what
New
it's
name,
called,
from the Top.
From the Top. Yeah, from the rapping Ronnie Reagan tape. This is the podcast where we talk about all the games. Do you want me to do it again?
If I tuned into this, I'd be so confused right now.
No,
well, I'm presuming
think
people.
do you know what, Steve? You after making your bed, you better shit in it.
Fair enough. We're going to go ahead. We're bursting on. People are probably listening to like previous episodes anyway. They know the drill. This is the podcast where we talk about all the games on Metacritic and we just discuss them one by one, talking about what they like contribute to the gaming landscape, our impression of them, and just kind of like a book club for games, if you will.
Wow, that was a good intro.
That was
professional and succinct.
Solid.
Yeah, shame I fucked it up with everything preceding it, isn't it? So we are the podcast that asks hard-hitting questions, such as, lads, what's the weirdest thing you've ever stolen before?
Oh, fuck, man. You always ask us to, like, hey, guys, what's your top 5 favourite crimes you've committed? Like, you're always trying to fucking,
I just got one, actually.
Go ahead, Sean.
No. I want to hear Michael's first, though.
No, I need to hear some crimes first before I
don't know if I want to air these on national fucking television.
Oh, yes, national television.
RTE. Well, we should preface this by saying the game we're talking about today is Grand Theft Auto 5. So
man, I was going to segue into that. That's all. It was a segue.
Absolutely ruined.
It's not like no one's looked at the title of this podcast.
As we'll see you next week.
Go tell us your crime.
I don't know if I should, to be honest. I mean, it's not that bad. It's not like fucking the guards are going to come at me, but
here I'll tell you mine.
Okay, yeah. Well, can I? Yeah, I need to see what the level is of crime here. We're going.
I killed a man.
You said stole, though.
Oh yeah, I did say steal. Yeah, I stole his life.
Go for it.
I guess when I was in college, I stole a lot of like street signs and shit like that, and like. I can't remember why. It was when I was living with you, Steve. I stole the sign for a dentist. And I can't remember why I did it because it said something funny on it. But I can't remember what it was. Oh, that's
Did you
annoying
have that
now.
in the apartment? I don't remember.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
I remember you had like a traffic cone at one stage, but I don't remember the dentist sign.
Yeah, it was like either a dentist or like a cosmetic surgery place or something, but it just had some like plastic sign. It wasn't like, the proper like metal sign that was outside the building, like carrying like the D and the E sign down with me from a dentist, but big fake teeth or something. But for some reason I stole that and I can't remember why. So yeah, that's my one. Sean.
Okay, so that's the level we're at, Sean. Like, did you steal a car or something?
No, mine's not actually that bad. But so.
Steve, what's your horrendous crime that's worse than that?
I don't know if it's worse.
I'm sure
the emotional toll that it took anyway. I stole a framed photograph of 2 sheep in a field once.
Okay. Need a bit of backstory on this one.
Yeah, I suppose you would do, all right. I'm going to summarize this as much as I can. I was in Poland, obviously. And I was out for a night out, and there was this guy that I was like chatting to for the whole night. Got on really well with him, and then when I was on the way home, I saw him again. And he was like, "Hey, do you want to come back to like my place for like a party in Polish?" And I went back, and when I went to his place, they were doing a lot of recreational druggy drugs. And I was kind of like, oh, wow. At the level that I wasn't quite comfortable with. And I was kind of like, oh, well, listen, lads, I actually have work in the morning, so I'm just going to head on. So I was on the way out, and then I saw this photograph in his hallway of 2 sheep in a field. And for some reason, I kept thinking, no one will believe my story unless I have evidence. So I grabbed that picture, shoved it in my jacket, and I woke up with it the next day.
Well, okay, first of all, that's not evidence of anything. Like, you could
I
have
know,
got that picture anyway.
but in my head it was. In my head I was like, look, here's a physical thing that I brought, so therefore believe everything else.
But that could have had some mad I think that's the worst one, really. Sean, you're forgiven.
Thanks very much.
That could have had some sentimental value. What if they had started a farm back in the day, had toiled through years of hardship, the government against them, their neighbours against them, everyone against them, and then finally they get 2 sheep, Molly and Dolly, they get them going, they're pumping out wool, their life is set before them, and then they wanted to like mark that occasion. So they got a photographer from 2 towns over, because there's no photographer in their town, got him to take a picture of him. It's in the pride of place in their home, and then some ragamuffin comes and steals it.
I've got 2 questions. One, why were you in Poland? And 2, did they ever come looking for the picture?
What, from Poland?
Was anyone ever like, where the fuck did my picture go?
Well, I don't know. The last time I saw them when I was leaving their apartment, and I was just there for like a lad's holiday. So, yeah, probably not. They're probably forever wondering. Anyway, Grand Theft Auto 5 is the game that we're talking about today. And it is a game in which you steal things. So just a few little facts on Grand Theft Auto 5, probably stuff you already know. It's made by Rockstar Games. It came out for the PlayStation 3, then for the PlayStation 4, and then again for the PlayStation 5. It also came out for the Xbox 360, the Xbox One, and then again for the Xbox Series X. And also for the PC. So it's out for a ton of things, and it has a position on Metacritic for like each copy of this. So this is the highest version, which is, do any of you off the top of your head know? Xbox One, which is that's the version that none of us played, I'm assuming. Yeah. So yeah, this is like the it game. This is the game that I feel like everybody was playing when it came out, and like consistently for a long time afterwards. It was a pretty big deal. It was this. Oh, by the way, this rounds up our like top 10 games. This has brought us up to number 10. So, milestone. So yeah, first of all, I just want to get like your guys' like personal history with this game, like just to know where you guys are at with it before we go any further. I'm going to throw it to Sean first.
Yeah, well, so my first time playing this was in college with Michael, actually. So around, when did it come out again? 2012, wasn't it?
2013.
2013, yeah. So it was probably around then, around 2013, 2014.
No, yeah, I think I got it like pretty much the week or month it came out.
Yeah, because I remember you had it and we're like, oh, no way. And we just like, we were all just...
It sounded like such an ad for, oh, no way, Sega Mega Drive.
But I just remember us all like sitting around the living room playing it and stuff. And yeah, it was a good time.
Yeah, so that's pretty much my history with it as well, as in like it was the PS3 version, obviously, and we got it and just didn't go to college that week and played the shit out of it. And then like I played it a good bit in college, and I've played the PS4 version, and that's the version I've played most recently in research for this podcast. But so I've experienced both versions of it, I guess, but and a bit of the online. But yeah, so pretty much from the start, I was looking forward to this.
Yeah,
I've pretty much just played it like those years in college as well. I think I played a bit of the PS4 version, but not much. So yeah, I haven't really played it properly in years. But yeah.
Well, you guys know what a massive fan I am of the Grand Theft Auto franchise. So my story with this basically involves, I went over to Michael's house once when he was in college and I played it there literally for about half an hour. And that was my entire association with this game, like up until we started doing this podcast when I played the PS4 version. And I think I would guess I'm close to the halfway point at least.
Okay.
But yeah, the one thing I do remember, just to like throw it back again, I remember there were so many ads for this game. Marketing was
yeah.
insane when Grand Theft Auto 5 came out. I can't remember any game having as much marketing as that game had.
I was going to hit on the hype around it, like before it came out. It was absolutely massive. And that's why I remember like it was such a big deal when Michael got it. And we were like, oh my God, we actually have a copy of it.
Yeah, and like the numbers for its sales in the first few days and is crazy. Like 1 billion in the first 3 days it made. So it was like it's
insane.
definitely one of the biggest selling entertainment media products ever.
Still is, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, like and it's probably
I think
something
it
to
is
touch
the
on,
number
but-
one, isn't it? Isn't it still number one like media type of media like ever sold? Like it sold more copies than anything else.
I think so.
I'd say once you like Pokemon sort of hovers around there as well as a franchise, but as an individual game, probably because like we've mentioned, there's been so many different versions of it. Like we're still playing Grand Theft Auto 5 like 10 years later, and it's still constantly at the top of the charts. But more importantly, it's in-game transactions and purchases.
Yeah.
That accounts for a lot of money with the amount of people playing it online.
Man, I'm not even a fan of this franchise, but even I was pissed off when the trailer for the PS5 version came out. Like, I can only imagine what people who actually like the series must have felt about it. Because just for anyone who's like not in the know on it, obviously when a PS3 version came out, yay, everyone's excited. PS4 was only a year later, so the version of that they brought out, people were like, oh yeah, we can play it on modern consoles. And then cut ahead like 8 years later and like Rockstar Games logo comes up. It's like, oh my God, is it GTA 6? No, it's a game that's like, how old? Like 7 years old now.
I still remember that because I think we talked about this on the podcast. It was during Sony's like State of Play during E3 or something, and they opened it with the Rockstar logo, and everyone was freaking out. And then it was a GTA 5 trailer. We're like, are you fucking serious?
It was bad choice on their part.
Yeah,
But saying that, it's still making them money. Like it's still selling like hotcakes. So it's they're a victim of their own success in a way. Like they're after making so much money that they like. I think one thing that points to that is there was never any single player DLC released for this, but there was a fuck ton of online DLC and add-ons and extra content released for it. So they obviously redirected their resources where they'd make the most profit, which you can't blame them for. If it's something, we would obviously prefer some single player DLC, or those of us who are into the game, but a lot of people wanted more cars and more guns and more missions online, and that's what they got.
I think what you meant to say is then we were victims of their own success, like, because they clearly aren't victims of that.
Yeah,
but
true.
yeah, I mean, just to give like a little bit of background for anyone who happens to be completely in the dark for GTA 5. So, I mean, most people probably know GTA as a series. I was thinking about this earlier. Do you think if you said GTA or Grand Theft Auto to your mothers, do you think they'd know what it was?
yeah, 100%.
I think they'd recognize the name and probably be able to identify it as a video game.
I remember back when Vice City came out, and it was all over the news about the violence and stuff. And my mother, because she knew I played games and stuff, she didn't know what I played. And then she was like, "Do you play that game, Sean?" I was like, "Yeah." And she's like, "Oh my God!" And she like freaked out. Like, yeah, because that was around the time. Well, I can't remember exactly what was going on, but I think like there was a bunch of probably parent-teacher groups like coming out against the game then and stuff.
There was this lawyer named Jack Thompson, I think, who
he was
tried
the whole
to
thing.
file. He had a huge vendetta against violent video games around that time, and particularly Grand Theft Auto Vice City.
Yeah. So I think that's why it was in the news, and they paid particular attention to the fact, I think, that you could like pick up a prostitute and then kill them afterwards and get your money back. I think that was like a big thing they showed on the news about like how violent and stuff it was.
Yeah,
I think they were called, what they called like the Common Sense Group or something ridiculous like that. Some really, they had like I remember they had like a really ridiculous name.
like the lamest name you can have ever. You can call yourself anything, guys.
Thing is, like when you look at something like that from the outside, I guess like actually, yeah, that sounds pretty awful, you know. But if you don't play games, then you just don't really get it. I guess. But anyway, this is a different topic of discussion.
Yeah. I mean, we're going to get into that, but like, I just want to give you a little bit of background. So most people know like the idea of Grand Theft Auto, but I think there is there's a key difference between a game like this, GTA 5, and something like GTA 3. So I just wanted to ask, I'm going to throw this to Michael. If you were to describe GTA 3 and you had to only use like one or two words, what words would you use?
Well, open world sandbox. That'd be
Okay, if you had to choose one of those two terms, what would you choose?
um sandbox, I guess.
And if you were to
I
describe
think, well,
GTA 5,
yeah, I'd probably use the same term. I think sandbox.
really?
Yeah. I think so. I think that's. I'm not sure what.
I was
point
really
you're
hoping
getting
you'd
at
say
there.
what I wanted you to say. So
I know.
no, I
Yeah,
think
you
there.
shouldn't ask leading questions if you don't want the answers. But
Damn it! I should have asked Sean this question. Yeah, no, I do think like personally, this is a very small difference, but I think it's an evident one. I think the early PS2 GTA games had a very sandboxy feel, whereas like this one is a very open world thing, and that seems like a nothing difference. Like, it doesn't say like there's no difference at all, but I think there's like an implicit sense of fun and play in sandbox, whereas the open world thing less so. This is the point I'm going to come to again later. I just wanted to bring it up now. But yeah, basically you are in a giant city, or in this case, multiple cities, going around stealing cars, driving, shooting, mega violence, a lot of people like swearing, drugs, guns, money, robbing banks, that kind of thing. And it's basically a criminal fantasy game, is the way I would summarize this. The big thing with this game is the main selling point that I could find was basically the idea that you can switch between three members, three main characters. Michael DeSanta, Franklin Clinton, and Trevor Phillips. And a lot has been said about Trevor Phillips. So what do you guys think of these characters?
well, first of all, just on the three playable characters thing, I think that's probably one of the biggest triumphs of the game. Especially when you're going around the open world and just playing in it as a sandbox or in like just having fun with it, I guess. It's an amazing being able to switch between those three people because they all have different sort of abilities, special abilities that help them. Like Franklin, you can slow down time when you're driving, and that's a lot of fun, particularly because of the amount of driving you do. And they sometimes utilize it very well in missions as well. So, especially during the heists, you're able to switch between the characters, and one of them's the getaway driver, and one of them's like the sniper, and one of them's doing something else on the ground level, etc. So, in that way, I think they utilize it very well. And there's like nice little touches as well. Like if you switch to another character, they're like in the middle of something. Sometimes they're like having an argument with their wife, or they're just after coming out of a shop or something like that. So it does feel like a lived-in world in a way. In terms of the characters themselves, I think they're some of the worst characters that Rockstar have ever made. The most succinct way I can sum it up is they gave Trevor too much personality and they gave Franklin too little personality. Trevor is just he like the actor does a really good job. I'm a big fan of the performance in a way because he sort of sells a lot of the humor with the character, but he's just tonally so from like a completely different game to Franklin. Franklin's like very reserved and low key and serious in a lot of ways, whereas Trevor's like a cartoon character who's constantly like doing random acts of violence and like being very extra and just fucking crazy. You can see why they did that because that sort of he's almost like a manifestation of the part of the gameplay where you just go around blowing up cars and stuff like that. So he sort of fits into that in like, and I hesitate to use this term, but like in a ludo narrative way, as in the character doing these things in the game makes sense within the story of the game. Like if
God, he loves that word, doesn't he?
I know. What a
Loves that
pretentious
word.
dickhead. But the three characters, whenever they're on screen together, it just does not flow. The chemistry's not there. They're constantly getting into stupid arguments, which really gets tiresome over the entire length of the game. And yeah, they're just. I was really annoyed by all of the characters for different reasons, and I didn't like it. I prefer like Claude or whatever his name was or Clyde. I can't remember what his name
It
was.
was
from
Claude, I think, yeah.
Yeah, from Grand Theft Auto 3, who's just like a silent protagonist, like just a blank slate. That works better to me than what they did here.
Interesting. Okay. I do find that really interesting. Now, you've opened up two avenues that I want to talk about. Before I get to that, Sean, I want to get your take on it.
Yeah, I would just say I agree with everything Michael said. For me, I think splitting the protagonists into three characters didn't really. It didn't work for me anyway. I think I'd prefer one main character that you kind of connect with and follow their story along. The way it's split it up into three people, I think, just disconnects you a bit from as the player to the whole thing. And yeah, I also just didn't really like any of the characters in particular. Like, I guess, kind of like Michael touched on, like it was fun to play as Trevor when you're just going around fucking playing GTA for what GTA is and blowing stuff up and going crazy. And a lot of the time I liked just playing as Franklin, really. I just kind of, because he, like you were saying, he has a bit of a more subdued personality. I kind of almost like that because it was, I guess it was like, you know, playing a mute character for, you know, they're as close as you can get to that. But yeah, and I didn't like Michael really at all. No offense, Michael, but
yeah, I take that personally. Anyone with my name who is insulted, I feel insulted. I think one thing that I thought of when you were saying that, Sean, is that this came out in a time when in TV, and it seems to be TV and film that they are the like cultural touchstones for these games a lot of the time. There was this big thing in TV at the time of anti-hero protagonists, or protagonists with like grey morality. So you have like Tony Soprano and Don Draper and Walter White from Breaking Bad and tons of other ones I'm probably not thinking of. And there's lots of great TV shows obviously made about them because they have like, they're fascinating in a way and you like them despite the things they do. They didn't nail that with these characters at all. Like I just did not like them in any way and they do horrible things. We're probably going to touch on the torture scene at some point, which is like a fucking tonal mess at like being charitable, that's what you'd call it. But
it's so weird, that, isn't it? Like, yeah, I mean, we'll get into it. Sorry, yeah.
I don't know why they. Anyway, but the funny thing is, I think Rockstar can make this sort of character. I think Arthur Morgan is a pretty good example of that sort of character. He does some horrible things, and we touched upon, you know, him chasing the death of the family in Red Dead 2, and like that being really, you know, at the very least morally ambivalent, or you know, it makes you think about the character in a different way, a character you've a lot of affection for. But in this, it's just like, it's so cartoony, it's hard to engage on that level.
Please check out our episode on Red Dead Redemption 2.
Yeah,
okay, so yeah, no, I mean, you guys had almost the exact same reaction to this game that I did, more or less. So one thing I want to talk about is so switching between characters. So Michael, you were saying that that's like their big. Well, I said it as well, but this is like their big thing. Would you really call that revolutionary though? Because like I would be more on the side that Sean was on. Like I rarely switch characters like at all. Like, is it something you can do on the fly at any point once you've unlocked them all? Because again, I never did it like at all. I just waited until like the game prompted me to do it.
It's something in open play you can do, like when you're not in a mission, you can do it any time, except for a few exceptions, like where one character's like, I don't know, captured or something. I can't remember if that happens, but there are certain times when you can't access a character. But in the missions, yeah, that is a fair point. It's a bit more constrained, and this may be something we get into later, but it probably is emblematic of the mission design being extremely linear. Which is something that goes through all Rockstar games, really. Like for LA Noire, Red Dead suffer from this as well. Like there's one way to do this mission. You're on a bit of a set path. But I did enjoy it in some of the heists. It was fun. Like I did one where you rob this country bank in the countryside, and Michael and Trevor are in these big armored suits and they're shooting at the cops, and then you switch to Franklin, who's in a bulldozer who pushes through all the cop cars to save you. And like it's a really entertaining mission, and it's a cool way to jump to that character and save the character you were just playing as, and then like to very elegantly incorporate different gameplay types into the same mission. But in terms of like narrative or I don't know, character, it really doesn't serve any other purpose. I guess it's fun to switch between characters if, let's say, I want to get to the other side of the map and I switch to Trevor because I know he's going to be in the countryside. It's a very efficient way to get around in a way. But again, I didn't use it too much. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, because like not to be critical or anything, but like I was going to ask like how often did you use it? Because again, it doesn't seem something that it doesn't seem as well implemented as it could be. Like I'm sure it's not that difficult to do, but the game never suggests to you that this is something you need to be using all the time. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, and I don't like probably the biggest downfall of the system is that it's non-essential in a way, or I should say it doesn't dramatically increase your gameplay opportunities or chances, other than each of them have their own special abilities. But I did enjoy it in open play, I have to say, just switching between, and like let's say one of the annoyances with the older games is if like you're in the middle of nowhere and your car gets blown up and then like you have to run for ages to get back somewhere. It sort of solved that problem in a way. So I did enjoy it for that, and like I think like the audio visual aspect of like the zooming out into the sky level and then it zooms back in, like technically it's done very well. Like I don't remember there being like a long loading time or anything while I was waiting to switch between characters, and for such a big and like graphically interesting game, that's amazing. That's really cool. But yeah, I would agree to your point. What does it add? Not a lot.
Yeah, the main issue that I'm bringing to now, I'm going to talk about like some of the things that I think the game does right, because I do think there's a lot of stuff it does do well. The main issue I have, and I'm just going to like focus on it for a little bit before moving on, is just that I don't think this game innovates like very much at all. Like that's the biggest innovation there. Everything else I would argue that the game does is just refinement. Like if you were, aside from the switching characters, I think the biggest innovation is the driving isn't shit, which is a nice change from Grand Theft Auto 4. Sean.
Well,
well, that's interesting though, Sean. What did you feel when you played Grand Theft Auto 5? You're like, okay, the driving's fine, but it's not fun in the same way?
No, I do agree that they made the right choice with the refinement in the driving. I think it's more accessible to everyone. I did think it was a bit what's the word? Like I felt like it was missing something when I first picked it up. I was like, oh, the cars are a bit too like they're too easy to drive almost. There's not really a kind of a knack to it.
It's kind of like driving like a radio controlled car a little bit, isn't it?
Yeah, a little bit. They're a little bit slidey and stuff, but easier to control, I guess. So I mean, but I didn't have a major issue with it or anything. I think it was the right decision for them to make. So
you can definitely get the feeling of, we're going to round a lot of edges that were on Grand Theft Auto 4. So there was like a bit of a pushback against the driving. There is people who 100% feel that 5 was a step down from 4 in a lot of ways, with a lot of the systems and little, physics things and the car handling especially. But it's a lot easier to pick up and play. Like I think we made the point during the Grand Theft Auto 4 episode that if we had to pick up one now and just mess around with it, it would definitely be 5.
Yeah, well, I mean, let's talk about like the game itself now, because I know we're going to talk a load about character story and all that. That's where all the focus is almost surely going to be. Do you guys have any issues with the gameplay? Because I don't think I really do. Pretty much all the issues I have come from like the writing, the characters, the story, and that kind of thing. But in terms of like minute to minute gameplay, I think it's pretty decent. There's a lot less like just typical escorting missions, and all the side stuff that you can do is a lot less intrusive than Grand Theft Auto 4 was. Like it's all still there, but you don't get a call every 5 minutes saying, "Hey, cousin, let's do this." Yeah. And I appreciate it for that because it added an element of like discovery. One thing that I did once, and it was just fun to do, was when you're playing as Michael, you can go to your therapist just for like quick session, and you kind of have in the session that I did, there was kind of a branching dialogue tree thing, so you can kind of work through your issues. So it's kind of like a little mini adventure game sort of thing happening there, which I liked. It was just there. I didn't go back to it again because I don't feel the need to, but it was just nice that it was there.
In terms of the gameplay, well,
no, let Sean talk. He hasn't talked in a while.
Sorry, man.
You're grand. You can say what you want to say.
I feel abashed.
No, it's fine. Well, yeah, I don't think there was any kind of. I think at this point, the GTA formula is what it is, and people coming into a game know what to expect in terms of gameplay and that. So I think there wasn't any major issues for me anyway with how it played. Like, it was controls were very refined, shooting mechanics were what they are. I wouldn't say they're the best, third person shooter mechanics, but like they were better, probably better than 4 anyway. Like, they refined them again a bit. Driving was more accessible, so on. So no major issues with the gameplay for me.
Now you can say something. Sorry to be a dick to you there.
No, it's fine, man. You can jump in.
My main issues are with Sean, if I'm being honest. So this is really personal. No, 2 things. Like, I do agree with Sean, as in, like, they sort of refine things, and in a lot of ways, this is the best Grand Theft Auto has ever been in terms of gameplay. Because there's less of the annoyances, your car flipping over and exploding in the middle of a mission, and then you're in the middle of nowhere. That's solved because you can flip cars real easily. That's
brilliant. I love that feature.
Yeah, like, I don't care that it's not realistic. It's so much handier. I love that. I think Rockstar have a real problem with mission design a lot of the time, because most of the missions are extremely linear in this game, and that's fine to a certain extent. But since some of the systems in the game mightn't be built for every mission, it can make some frustrating fail states. Case in point, I was doing a mission and fucking Rockstar cannot do train missions well. It's their Achilles heel. Another train mission, and you had to jump your bike onto this train, and I just kept missing it and instantly failing the mission as a result. Not instantly, actually having to drive for another 5 minutes until the game would register that I'd failed it. And that was extremely annoying. And I just, like, millimeters out from the designed path that I'm meant to hit on the train, so that a cutscene happens of Trevor landing on the train. And that sort of very narrow and, don't paint outside the lines, don't color outside the lines sort of mission design, it seems to have followed through every Rockstar game I can think of. Like, LA Noire had it, the Red Dead games had it as well. The heists are the exception to that, in my opinion, because a lot of they're still extremely linear, but at least you're switching between characters and doing fun stuff, and they're a bit more involved. But like more of just a general annoyance is I don't think they've done the on foot handling very well. Like, it actually, going back to the game, having not played it for a while, it was actually stiffer and slower to walk around and do stuff like that than I remembered. Like, it's incredibly, like, the driving's amazing, but just like walking down a corridor and turning through a door or something is just really awkward, and you're constantly bumping into things. There's no way to do it smoothly, which is a shame, because Rockstar also made Max Payne 3 around this time, and that's, like, as far as I know, you can correct me if I'm wrong, Sean, but that handles really well, and that's all on foot.
Beautifully, yeah. But that is a single-player game, is the only thing. So, it's like linear, you know what I mean? So
it's not open world, I guess, yeah.
Yeah, so your path is kind of, like, very well designed for you, I guess.
I wonder, is this just something, a holdover that Rockstar has? Because now I've never played Max Payne 3, but any other game I've played of theirs, this is a problem that, like, persists the whole way through. Like, I played The Warriors, I played Manhunt, I played Bully, and all of those, they feel a lot like this. Like, the characters all feel quite floaty. They don't feel like they have a lot of weight to them. The one example being, of course, Red Dead Redemption 2, and that brought its own set of problems, because then, again, while at least there was weight to them, there was too much weight, because he was just dragging around like fat fucker. But anyway, but yeah. So like, I do agree with you guys. I think like in some ways this has become better than like it ever has been. But I think a lot of the problems that like GTA, I hesitate to say are known for, because I think a lot of people have a blind spot with GTA that I don't understand. But like I do think that a lot of these problems have persisted. Let's talk about the story. I didn't finish this game, but my impression of it was, I wouldn't say the game itself is like the story is terrible, but I don't think it's anything special. And that's pretty much all I have to say on it.
Sean, do you want to say anything on this before I fucking go on a big Spielberg?
Sorry, on the story, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, okay, so I think like we said before, Steve, I haven't completed it. But I've played enough. Like GTA stories in general have never been, you know, amazing personally, I think. You know, they've never jumped out at me as, wow, that's like going to go down in history as one of the greatest video game stories. But so, yeah, I don't know. For me, I think it kind of comes back to the characters again for me with the story, and how, you know, there was a bit of a disconnect, I felt, not having just one main protagonist. That and just the story in general being a bit lacking, kind of, it just all ties together for not being great for me, really. Yeah, I like, for example, I thought the story in GTA 4 was a lot better than 5.
Yeah.
And even though it's seen by most people as a lesser game, maybe, but I thought the story of that was much better. Yeah.
Yeah, there's one thing GTA 4 brings to the table. It is like, I mean, I assume I haven't played all of them, but I feel like it's the best story that the series has ever gotten. Which unfortunately, just like the rest of the game design kind of weighed it down, which is a sucky move. But yeah, no, I'd agree. Like there's nothing. I feel like even though this is a game consisting almost entirely of set pieces, I feel like nothing about it really jumps out at me as like a whoa moment. Like, you know, there's nothing really incredible. And maybe that's partly because everything you can do in cutscenes, you can more or less do like in game, like minute to minute gameplay. And therefore like the gameplay has just completely outshined anything that the story or the story writers can like possibly show you.
Yeah, it almost reminds me of the way Call of Duty campaigns started to become like an afterthought as the games progressed, because the multiplayer was just so popular and drew so much attention that like the story was just like a preview of the things you can get up to in your multiplayer games, game sessions. But like just on the point of Grand Theft Auto 4, I think it had a more focused story because, well, it's about one protagonist in general, and it was like you get involved in all this crime in the city, etc., but it had a sort of personal narrative running through it. Like Nico's an immigrant coming in and he has a dark past, and it's a bit of a revenge story as well. You don't have they try to incorporate some of that stuff, like there's a past between Michael and Trevor, and you know there's involvement with the cops and you know with the FBI and being an informant and trying to get away from the crime life. But the characters are just so inconsistently written that none of this hits home. And you're completely right, Steve. There's no wow moment in terms of the story. There's cool missions and all, like the heists and all, and there's other standout missions, but there's no... Do you know that bit in 4 where you go get your revenge? Basically, you kill the guy. Very low key mission, but it sort of stays with you as well. Like it's got some resonance. And like Red Dead, both Red Deads are full of moments like that. But this is just such a cartoony sort of tone to it that it can't hit those same emotional beats. And there's nothing wrong with a cartoony tone like the Saints Row games do it, and they're a lot of fun, but you can't be both things, or it's extremely difficult to be both things. And like, I just hate the dialogue in Grand Theft Auto games. Like like this is where it reached the lowest point for me. Like it's just so stupid. I think the writers just started to like the smell of their own farts a bit too much by this stage. Like everyone had said, wow, these Grand Theft Auto games are such, like the way they satirize American culture is amazing, but it's really shallow. It's just like changing the name of American things and putting fart and sex jokes in the title. That seems to be a lot of it. And like it's really sorry, Sean, it's really misogynistic as well. Like going back to it and playing it, I just noticed that more this time through, 2022 eyes, I guess, in a way. And like, it's
very
of its
hard
time.
to defend that.
Yeah, it's of its time, but its time is just like 10 years ago. So it's.
But there are a lot of people who defend the misogyny in it, saying like it's all parody. But there's no parody to it, really. Like there's nothing being said here other than like, hey, look at the fact, like we're taking the piss out of like women, and like all women in this game are awful, and that's it. Like if there was anything being said there, like I couldn't find any messages. Now I know there's like a lot of the parody, the messages that they do come across. I've read that a lot of these happen in like side missions or just like on the street. So like I might not have found all of them, but from what I saw, all I saw were a lot of pastiches of shrill, hysterical women, or like women who are nothing, basically debased as sexual objects, and very little in between. So I didn't really. It's more than anything, it's frustrating. Like I don't really care about these games, but it annoys me that they're this popular because I have so many issues with these games. Like before I go any further, just to get like, how did you guys feel about this game? Like to kind of, I'm not summing up, but I just want to get your opinions before I make my next point.
Just in general, like how do we...
Yeah, like what's your impression of GTA 5?
I gotta say I'm not the biggest fan either. Like, I think maybe I'm just kind of have grown tired of like the GTA style of game, because there's been so many open world games in like that kind of genre since like GTA originally came on the scene, and I think I played the shit out of 4, and I loved 4 at the time. When it came to 5, I was like, oh, class, the new GTA. Played a good bit of the story, but then mostly just played in the open world. It was a game that you could like throw on at any time and just mess around in if you had like an hour to kill or something. You didn't have to dedicate yourself to like a mission or something. You'd still have fun just driving around or doing whatever. But yeah, I wouldn't really go back to it now. Like even, I know we're going to talk about the online and stuff at some stage, like even with how big that is, that never really drew me back in, because I guess it's just been, I've just grown tired of it, I guess. So it's not a game, and even when it came out, I thought it was very good at first, but it still didn't blow me away as anything groundbreaking.
I think you hit on something really true there, Sean. It's still, you said like it's fun to throw on and just drive around, and like that's true. It is like, even if you're not like blowing shit up, it's fun to drive around in the game, and it still has that particular Grand Theft Auto magic in a way. Like 3 had it, 3 invented it, but every game has had that sort of, I can just get in a car and sort of just drive around this city, listen to some songs or the chat shows on the radio, and then I can go and blow up some stuff as well. And that part of the game is still there. And I think it's as good, if not better, than it's ever been.
Yeah.
But yeah, in terms of other things engaging me, maybe it's Burnout or maybe it's just like shallow mission design. But the rest of the game didn't do it for me.
I was just going to add on that what you were saying about like jumping into the game. Like no other open world game, I think, has done it as well. I will say that, because like I could do the same thing and say like a Saints Row game or Watch Dogs or something, and just like jump in and drive around, but I'll be like, it hasn't got that flair or that like refinement that GTA does. You know, you'd always compare those games to a GTA game. So yeah,
I agree. There's some secret sauce they have that makes it just fun to be in that world. And that's probably a big reason. I don't know if I'm jumping too far ahead, but it's probably a big reason that the online is so popular. Me and Steve did a bit of research for this and jumped on and made
I love
some
that you call
very
it
ugly,
research.
made some very ugly online characters. I'll throw on a picture if I have it on the video edit. But and we didn't do much when we were playing, Steve. We just drove around and did a few shootouts and like got in some chases and all, and it was a lot of fun just doing it at that level.
It was the most fun I had playing GTA 5 was doing the online bit. And like before I played GTA Online, I was very much like anti GTA Online because again, it was like one of those things that was so incredibly popular and I just felt like I didn't get it. And I was like, why is this so popular? It's just more of the same. But actually, GTA Online is actually, in my opinion, the distillation of what makes GTA games really good. And it took me playing it to realize that because everything that you've had problems with these games before, like, you know, the way like they handle when they're like walking around, the story, the writing, all these things, they pretty much all go away in terms of GTA Online because you can just do whatever the hell you want and none of it really, there isn't really an end, there isn't an arc that you need to follow. I mean, there are story beats, but they're not why you're there. And you could make the argument that, you know, the same could be said for the offline mode, you know, like the story beats are there, but that's not why you're playing. But for me, it is. When I'm playing an offline game, I have to follow the story. Like, otherwise, I'm like, it makes me feel like I'm wasting my time. Yeah. Whereas with online, because it's so expansive, I already know there's pretty much no chance of me ever finishing this. So I can kind of disassociate from that and relax and enjoy it. And that's why I think GTA Online, if it's probably a good thing. Well, not a good thing, but I can understand certainly why they put so much effort into it because I think you could make a very optimistic claim that they aren't just doing it for the money, but this is actually where GTA lives now.
Yeah, that's true. I really enjoyed the online as well, especially with someone. I think that was an important element of when we were playing it together, is playing it with someone. Because I think I think I might feel it's a little more shallow if I was just running around doing it myself. But the fact that I was enjoying it with you and like you were beside me in the car, your ugly player character was beside me.
I was going for, just for Sean's benefit, I was going for Angelica Houston in like The Witches. But like if she was from Florida is basically the angle I was going for.
That's really accurate, actually. That was really good. I was trying to do like a middle-aged Irish guy who had come over on his J1 and had stayed in America without a visa and worked in bars for the past 20 years. Very specific backstories we had for both our characters, I have to say.
100%. But yeah, okay, so I was going to ask you guys, now this, I was kind of expecting you guys to really love this game, so this has kind of punctured my balloon a little bit now, but the main question, so it's no secret, I don't like GTA games. I don't like them. I've never liked them. I don't understand their popularity. So I was hoping you guys could like explain to me the popularity of Grand Theft Auto games. Now, I know you've already told me that like something's been lost in GTA 5 and it's not quite the same. Do you think there's some of it is nostalgia by any chance?
No, I think it's like I was saying earlier. I think Sean would agree. Like they still have nailed the fun aspect of just driving around and messing and like those sort of the wish fulfillment / you know. Like, well, one thing I should point out as well. It's not something I've engaged with too much, but there's a huge role playing community for this game
I was going to touch
online.
on that.
Where people go on and like pretend to be cops or pretend to be some other character, like the literal definition of role playing, and it facilitates that so well in a way, just by like you can change your character's appearance and the world feels alive in a lot of ways. You see that's great for those sort of things. Where it falls down is just that it doesn't engage in a single player way because of the mission design and the characters and stuff like that. That's the reason why we were probably a lot more engaged with the single player story in Red Dead 2 than, because Red Dead 2 is a big open world, but it's sort of made to facilitate the story rather than the other way around. Like I wouldn't be surprised if they designed this map and then stuck a story on it rather than thinking, this is the themes we want to get across. This is the story we want to tell. What world should this live in? Where I think like Red Dead and L.A. Noire as well sort of exist more in that space. But like I still think it has, like, I know we've been very negative, but it still does play extremely well in some ways. Like we're saying, driving around is just a lot of fun in this game. And that's the secret sauce, is it feels like a real world, but one that you can consequence-free have a lot of fun in.
So it is like, I mean, would you say that like the key thing about this game, the thing that really sells it, is that it's basically just a power fantasy?
Yeah. Or like a bad behavior fantasy in a way.
Yeah.
It's more like, you touched on it, like we admitted to 3 crimes we committed at the beginning of this podcast, all relatively.
Sean's going to get arrested for his.
Yeah, exactly. The FBI are knocking on the door, but like all relatively small scale, minor things that we did, apart from Sean.
Yeah, obviously.
But within this, you can work out those sort of, like, I can imagine this being, along with Call of Duty, the top game for people who hate their job and come home and just want to blow off steam. How healthy it is to blow off steam by like massacring digital people is a different topic, but I think it scratches that itch very well.
Yeah, I get where you're coming from, actually. Just because, like, when I think of Grand Theft Auto, did you guys see that last year, that Ryan Reynolds movie Free Guy?
No.
No, I heard of it, but I haven't watched it.
Okay, well, just for anyone who's listening who doesn't know the premise, Free Guy is basically the Truman Show, but instead of like being stuck in a TV show, he's stuck in like an online video game that is essentially Grand Theft Auto. And the way I viewed, like the way they portray that the city in that game, it's kind of spot on. Like, it's just constant like flipping cars, people in like small airplanes driving through the streets, crashing into buildings, random people just like shooting people completely indiscriminately, and like that's where it's at. That's where the fun of GTA is. And I think the more the games progress, the more the Rockstar feels the need to attach a serious story onto it, and that's what's dragging it down. So yeah,
like it's a weird one. I do feel like they want to be taken seriously and for people to be engaged in the narrative, but it's really like it doesn't work in this game at all. Like I've completed the game and I can't tell you the main story beats. I can tell you how it starts and roughly how it ends. But that's not a good story. Like whereas with, Red Dead, which we keep going back to, but, that's got a very strong narrative going throughout it and feels more engaging. And I probably have a lot more affection for the games as a result.
Okay. Well, the last thing that I want to talk about, the characters themselves. Now, I know we've talked about this a little bit already, but I have a theory about why they went in the direction they did with these characters, and I kind of feel like it holds up. So just again, for the benefit of the listeners, so you can play as 3 characters. The first is Michael, who is also here, Michael DeSanto, and his kind of story and his character is that he used to be like a big time criminal. He was really good at setting up heists. He basically went into witness protection to get away from that life, and also from Trevor, who he kind of deemed a bit of a psychopath. And he made it really big. He has this great house and he's feeling really lethargic about everything. He can't really settle into like that life that well. And every now and then he just kind of like snaps and he goes out and he just does something insane, like, steals a car or whatever. Then we have Franklin, who I think we would all agree is probably the most boring character. He's got a really, really bog standard story. He's like an African-American man who grew up in the hood, and he's just trying to like break out of that, and he just wants to make something of himself. He wants to be somebody. And he basically meets up with Michael and thinks, this guy can teach me how to do it. And that's, as far as I can tell, his entire story. And then finally we have Trevor, who is definitely the one people had the most focus on. He is essentially a psychopath, someone who has no qualms whatsoever. Sorry, can you hear all the fireworks in the background? It's super
barrage going on.
It's so loud. Yeah. Just in case anyone's wondering, this is taking place in the middle of a festival here in Japan. But my public is more important. So Trevor, he's an absolute psychopath. He he just hits and kills people all the time. He doesn't care about anybody. Like, he is completely emotionally detached from so many people. Kind of with the exception of Michael and his family. I don't know how that pans out. But yeah, he kind of embodies the idea of the typical Grand Theft Auto player. Now, the theory that I have, and it comes back to ludonarrative dissonance. I think that they deliberately wrote these characters in such a way so that you would feel differently each time you played them. So, for example, when you play as Trevor, you feel zero guilt. You enjoy playing as him because everything you're doing, you're just laying back, I'm going to shoot this person, I'm going to steal this car, whatever, and it's fine. Franklin is the opposite. He's the person that when you're doing it, you want to do things right. You don't want to break the law. And you're trying to do everything like as close to the book as possible. Now, obviously, he still breaks laws, but he does it like in a very practical and restrained way. And then finally, we have Michael, who's somewhere in between because he's trying to live a good life, but he's constantly like battling with his inner demons. And like his therapist and his family keep saying like, you keep breaking, you keep dropping the ball, and you're just eventually going to become that person again. And so that, I think in some ways he's the most interesting character because you're trying to do things with a level of restraint. You've got like some of those missions like where you're trying to bond with your son, and like you just go out on like bike rides and stuff with him, but then like it gets like all deranged. Like I think halfway through that mission you go to get your daughter off this boat where they're shooting a porno and you just murder everybody on the boat. Yeah. So it's a weird kind of in-between sort of area. What do you guys think of that theory?
I think there's something to that. I think that was probably the design intention for the characters to, especially with Trevor. I think Trevor was like a big excuse to justify all the mayhem that you get up to. And I think we touched on this with Grand Theft Auto 4 that it feels a bit weird for Nico to be going out and like killing all these people when like he's quite a downbeat and morose character in a lot of ways. I'm not sure how well it works though. Like I think it's more important to have like a consistent character because like tonally none of these characters work with each other. Like when they're in scenes or missions together, it completely clashes. When in their individual missions they work a lot better, but like all together they don't, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, I mean that's the way I'm viewing it. Like I'm taking this completely out of context of the story and the narrative. This is entirely in terms of what you know of their characters and how they act upon their behaviors, like in individual missions. Yeah. Like I think a really good example that I saw was there's a bit when you first meet Trevor. It's a side mission, and it's just called a redneck rampage. And some guy like bumps into you or something, and you just get like furious, and then it's just like mission start, and you have to kill 30 rednecks, and that's it. But then almost the exact same mission happens in like the Michael missions where you bump into this guy and he's saying like, hey man, do you want to do some like drugs or something? And you have the choice to like say no, but like if you go like, yeah, sure, why not? You take it. And then you have this weird hallucination that aliens are coming to get you. So you just start shooting, and it's like a mission to kill loads of aliens. So they're almost identical missions, but like with the very distinct, one very important distinction that Michael is kind of out of his element. He's kind of hallucinating. He's not working at his regular capacities. I think that's important.
Yeah, but does it work? Like, does it? Because like with Trevor, it's sort of part of him, and you expect him to do that, and it's like it's like juvenile and like I think a bit silly, but it sort of works for him. Whereas with Michael, it's sort of maybe it works in like this is like a middle-aged dude and he can't handle his druggy drugs, as you call him, Steve, and he has this weird trip. But like it's just, I don't know. Like again, I keep comparing this to Red Dead, but that's sort of like a stranger mission within the context of Grand Theft Auto 5, the way you had stranger missions in Red Dead. And the stranger missions in Red Dead are sick. They're so cool. They like, you get to meet interesting characters and flesh out a little side thing, and they usually like have a nice progression with them, like as in you meet them again and they're after, something's after changing with them, like the photographer in Red Dead 2, or don't you meet like the devil in Red Dead 1 or something like that? But the Michael one is just like you take some drugs and you do this little fun mini game, and then that's the end of it. And he wakes up with like a sore head or something like that.
I mean, I think I would hesitate to say it's successful, but sorry, not even effective, but like I think it does work in some points. Like it depends on how much you invest in like the actual role playing aspect. I think because like there's a bunch of missions that I think Michael is a lot better than Franklin. To be honest with you, like I really didn't like his character at all. He felt like so nothing, whereas Michael, I felt like he had these random missions, like particularly like in and around his house, things that really characterized him better. Again, I want to emphasize that I didn't like any of these characters either. I'm just playing devil's advocate at this point. But there was a mission where like you literally have to do a mini game where you do yoga with your wife. And it's such a boring mission that it feels so good. Like, and this is the thing, like it feels better after that mission to go out and start stealing cars and shooting stuff than it would have done if I had gone immediately out and done it. If that makes sense.
Okay, so setting up a bit of some context for you with these characters helps in some way, I guess, for the rest of the action.
Yeah, and like again, like you were saying, I would hesitate to say that this is like an amazing experiment that paid off dividends, but like I do think it's there, and if it was something that you really invested in, you could get a lot from it. The problem is, I don't think anybody is going to put that much into this game.
Okay, fair.
Okay, that's pretty much everything I have to say on this. But before we wrap up, is there anything else you guys want to say on this or any closing comments on the game as a whole?
The thing I'll say is you go into Michael's son's room, right? I forget his son's name in it, by the way. But you go into the kid's room and he's playing like some knockoff Call of Duty game. Whereas like, would it not be more realistic for him to be playing something like, I don't know, Donkey Konga or something like that?
I got well. Good man yourself. I was telling Sean before we started the podcast that like I had a joke that and the punchline was basically Donkey Konga, right? But I couldn't remember what the setup for the joke was, and I was trying to think of it the whole way through it.
How the turns tabled.
I mean, but now I just feel like all the winds have been swept out of my sails. But
sorry.
Okay, so Michael, how about you? Like you were saying you wouldn't place this on your list. This definitely would be lower for you.
I do think it like once the dust has settled with the game, it's less than the sum of its parts, I would say. So a lot lower on the list. Weirdly, like even though I prefer it to Grand Theft Auto 4, I respect Grand Theft Auto 4 a lot more for it's like more daring design choices. So I'd put that higher up on the list, to be honest. But no, I don't think it deserves its place.
It's a really weird thing, like, because the dichotomy between this and GTA 4 is so weird. Like, I think this is the better game, but I like GTA 4 more. Isn't that's just like insane? Because it's like the things that I value are like mainly story and character, and GTA 4 does that better, but at the detriment of the game. So like, nah.
I think a lot of people's opinions have gone that way though on GTA 4, you know.
But yeah, and it's no secret, like I think this game is shit, basically. So like, I will say that like the GTA Online thing really surprised me. I really enjoyed that. But despite the fun that I had, and like it was a lot of fun, I really, really enjoyed it. It's not something I would ever spend that much time in, just because like the time it takes to get. I mean, I'm sure for kids it's very different, but like the time it takes just to coordinate two people to play a game, Michael, you know this already. It's really hard to do.
We're old men at this stage in terms of gamer age, so it took us a long time to get into each other's game. But it could be a bit more user friendly in that respect. But maybe we're just blind to that stuff.
I think for me, the GTA Online aspect, even though I never really got big into it, I think that's a big reason why I think it should be kind of high on the list. Just even though that kind of sits as its own thing now, like outside of GTA 5, because that will like definitely continue into GTA 6 as well. But it's almost its own standalone thing at this point, I guess. Yeah,
I do agree with you. Like if we were taking just GTA Online by itself, I think I would be a lot more favorable to it. But like because we're specifically talking about GTA 5 and GTA Online is kind of like an extra onto it, it's very hard to like think of it in that sense.
Oh, that's fair. Well, in that case, further down the list. So if we're not including that.
Okay, so yeah, that's our take on GTA 5. It's a big pile of very shiny dog shit. So yeah, I'm going to pass it on over to Sean if he knows what next week's, in inverted commas, title is going to be.
Do I? So next week, or whenever the next podcast is, we will be moving on to number 11 because GTA 5 takes up 9 and 10. And number 11 is Disco Elysium, the final cut.
And so, yeah, people will be glad to know that it's not exclusively Rockstar games that we do on this podcast. They will be coming back.
Fucking God.
But at least we have a little break from them, and a very different game, and probably, I'd say, the most recent game we'll be doing until we get to Elden Ring.
Yeah, looking forward to it. So, everyone, thank you very much for listening. Please rate and review us on Spotify or Anchor FM, or if you are watching on YouTube, please give us a little thumbs up. We are From the Top, and we also have an additional channel called The Cardboard Box Item, which it's the same title on YouTube, but on Spotify it's different. It's very complicated and confusing. But yeah, give us a like, give us a listen, give us a rating, and tell all your friends how absolutely amazing we are. And thank you very much. We will catch you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.